we go. So hi everybody and welcome. This is me, Shakti Sundari, and I'm talking with Azra Ladora today about meditation. And I've got a specific question. I'm giving it the frame of meditation as a woman. I don't know if Azra shares that framing of it, so that's something that we'll talk about in a minute. But just welcome, Azra. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy with me and everyone who's going to watch this interview. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I know Azra, we're friends, we're peers, so, you know, we have a beautiful connection anyway, which I think will come across as we talk. So Azra, for people watching this, can you introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you are. Who's Azra?
Okay, so yes, I'm a meditation teacher and been on this journey for probably more than 10 years now. Well, I think how I got into exploring meditation.
Can I just ask you something else? Can I ask you what, because I know you teach a specific form of meditation.
Yes. Well, yes, I teach transcendental meditation, also known as Vedic meditation.
Yeah.
And
I know you're a mum as well.
Yes, I am. I am a mum. I have 2 children, 2 boys, a single mum.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
15 and 13.
15 and 13, 2 boys. And you said you're a single mum. How long have you been a single mum?
Oh, wow. Since 2008.
Right. Oh yeah, 2 years shorter than me.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's just important to just give a context so people, know that about you. Can I ask how old you are? Is that a cheeky question?
Oh, not at all. Yes, I'm 40 years old.
Are you?
Yes.
Looking amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so your main work now is teaching meditation, is that right? Or
teaching meditation, mindfulness aspect to it. I'm also at the moment integrating a bit more of the life coaching side of things, because I think they're great complementaries. I see meditation as a great practice, an inward practice, something that we use to connect with a part of ourselves that we don't connect to when we're in daily activity and our attention is always going outwards. But then sort of the life coaching side of things is a bit more about becoming conscious of what's coming up, why it's coming up, and how we feel about those things and what we can do about those things, because ultimately we've got lots to work through in terms of our makeup and life in general.
Brilliant. And we'll come back to something else in a minute, but I did see you do a wonderful post about making nettle soup.
Oh yes,
you're also amazing at food, and
yeah.
That's the wrong way of saying it, but you know a lot about nutrition and herbs and supplements and all this stuff as well.
Yes. Well, if I was, if I weren't to say, oh, I'm, what are you passionate about? Yeah. I'd say I'm passionate about health and well-being. And that's because I became so unhealthy at some point in my life in many ways that I just decided to, pick myself up and work it out, because I asked, if I can hit rock bottom like this, I wanted to know why I became what I became. And so I went into embracing my health and well-being, and nutrition and food is very important for me. So I'm passionate about health and well-being as a whole concept. And that brings, of course, not just meditation and mindfulness, it brings in the food and what we eat and how we eat and herbs and spices and all sorts. It's an umbrella that encapsulates different aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just said you hit rock bottom and you were very ill.
Yes.
Is that rock bottom? So obviously, being me, I want to know about the rock bottom moment.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. What was that? What happened?
And so, yes, my marriage broke down and I was hurt. It was quite a challenging marriage that we became violent towards each other. And I was psychologically out of balance. I was underweight. And I also had the simultaneous event happening where my son was diagnosed as being autistic. And so
What were
it
you
was just, yes, it all happened sort of at the same time.
doing?
And yeah, I was just emotionally, psychologically, mentally really out of balance. Physically, they're all connected ultimately. And I just asked the question, why why am I like this? What's going on? There's got to be answers to this. And then it just took off from there.
So how did you, I mean, I'm guessing at that point you didn't have any practice of yoga or meditation or mindfulness in your life.
I had a very brief practice of yoga, but to be honest, my perception of yoga at the time was just the physical aspect of yoga. So just some stretching and strengthening kind of perception. But obviously yoga is a lot more than that. So, but that was sort of the starting point, because I had that in my life briefly. I held on to that and just grew from there. And of course, yoga is a lot more than just some stretching and so.
Can I just ask, before we kind of follow the thread, and I can kind of hear and feel like the vulnerability as you talk about it still, which, it moves me. But like, when you were at that very rock bottom place, like, what was the worst? Like, what was the worst part? Where did you get to in terms of, like, were you living on your own? Did you have to move your parents? Could you even function at that point in terms of looking after yourself and your kids? Or was it like pretty much a breakdown?
Well, okay, so I had my parents came to support me. It was a breakdown and a breakthrough happening sort of at the same time. The breakdown, of course, it was, like I said, I was really out of balance, but then the breakthrough followed, because I think what was really magical is that when I looked at my children at the time, I thought, oh God, if I let go, what will they do? And if I'm not strong and in balance, how am I going to deal with all this? So those were the questions that started coming to me. But yes, I didn't have much energy. So having my parents around for support was great. Just even just to have some cooking or some food ready, just the simple things meant a lot to me. So yes.
So then I can feel already your innate, something in your spirit was like innately inquiring, and also this kind of will to survive as well. And then in that, like, where or how did meditation then come into your awareness for the first time, like as a practice?
Okay, so yes, so as I said, I did have some brief yoga practice at the time, and one of the things I did is I decided to go deeper with yoga, and went to yoga classes and did more research about yoga. In fact, at the time, a few months later, I went and did a yoga foundation course just to learn a bit more about the philosophy of it and where it came from and so forth. But in those yoga classes, they will always end the yoga posture sequence with a practice of meditation or mindfulness. And there were as months went by, there were different ones that came to my awareness, such as using the breath or visualizing or contemplating. And so I then integrated whatever I could, chanting, anything that, you know, helped, anything that gave me more awareness and made me more present with what was going on in my life and inside me. I embraced it. So then, of course, I heard about Vedic meditation, or transcendental meditation, as they call it, from another parent at school.
Okay.
And she said, oh, you know, have you heard of this mental meditation practice? I said no, and at the time I was completely innocent about it. I'd never heard of it. So without doing any research, Shakti, 2 weeks later I just booked the course and I just went to learn. I thought, you know, the only way I'm going to find out more about it, because ultimately all these things are very experiential. You know, we can read about them a lot and we can intellectualize them a lot, but it's only when we practice them in a certain discipline and we feel them, that's when we really understand more about them, when it becomes experiential. And so I went and learned the TM technique, or TM meditation. And yes, ever since I've been practicing, and then I went and trained and became a teacher. Fast forward, of course. That's just the best way to summarize.
Wow, that's amazing. So it sounds quite organic, really, in the way that it just kind of grew and grew and became more part of your life.
Yes, absolutely. It was, you know, I always refer to it as a domino effect. Once I just, you know, one domino just went, then the other fell down. It just took over from there, and almost as if, you know, something carried me to carry on. And you know, despite all the challenges that I had, and of course during this time a lot of, you know, healing and understanding and relearning, unlearning, all of that stuff, which is still ongoing. It's really a never-ending journey when you think about it. You'll never, you know, you can't really say, oh, I'm here now, I've done it, you know, I'm the master of. No, you're always growing and you're always learning, you're always shifting, and sometimes you're always going back through things again, and, you know, back, and then oh yeah, it's just it's a never-ending journey. That's how I see it.
Totally agree. I talk about it as being the spiral, like the feminine way for me, or maybe it's everyone. I call it the feminine way anyway, which is like there's this spiral, and so you're going down and up.
Yes, yeah, that's a wonderful way.
But you're also rising all the time, but you're still kind of going back down to the subconscious and like bringing up a little bit more. You know, like this is constant. So that's how I see it. But so yeah, I totally agree. It's never done. It's always ongoing.
Yes, and also there's the there's glimpses of a stagnant phase that you go through. You just, you know, you stop for a while, and that's that's another part of it where you need to embrace.
So what challenges did you come up against with your meditation practice, and what benefits did you begin to see?
Okay, so challenges, I can probably describe them as challenges at the time, but I wouldn't see them as challenges today, because I've grown as a result of those, you know, experiences. But when I started really going deep into, you know, understanding myself and meditating, things started to change. So I stopped enjoying being with certain people that I thought I was, you know, really good friends with, and stopped, just patterns started shifting, which I couldn't understand why, you know, why was I, and I went through a phase where I was alone, not lonely in a sad way, but I would have my moments where I think, what's going on? Why is everything changing, beginning to change? And friendships was a wonderful one that stood out at the time. Obviously, people leave your life, but then new people replace your life, because as your vibe changes, there's a saying, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
So I found that aspect a bit challenging. What else? So sometimes I did find some emotional the emotional aspect of it, when something felt quite hurtful, or something that I felt quite sensitive about. I'd find that difficult and challenging. But then again, afterwards, once you go through that phase and you notice how that experience shifts your perception and you understand it, then again it contributes to your growth. But the benefits, I mean, yes, I can speak about the benefits for a long time, but just to summarize.
A question about the challenge.
Yes, go for it.
I think any woman who's a mom who's watching this, and I know on my Awakening Shakti course this year, there's several mums with young children, literally 1 or 2 years old, right? So I know their question is, how do I even fit a practice in, a stillness practice, when I'm up at all hours, it's unpredictable, napping, feeding, changing, like that. Because you have 2 boys, and they were obviously, when you started this, a lot younger. 2 boys, energetic, one with autism. And so I know the challenge of all of that. So I want to know how you built your practice in and around that, like what it took.
Yes, of course. So yes, the practical aspect.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a bit more challenging when you have dependents, especially when they're very young. However, ultimately, the important thing is that you set the intention, and you have that intention to meditate. And I mean, if possible, we choose to integrate it before children wake up. But yes, when they're babies, they wake up at more unpredictable times, perhaps. So we just set the intention to meditate, and when we find that space, we prioritize to do it. So we don't let it slip away and forget about it. Once we have that space, because there's got to be some space that will arise at some point in the day, rather than being fixated on, I'm going to meditate at this time. I suppose when you're a mum, you need to be more open to being more flexible and creative with when you can integrate it. So as long as you have that openness and intention, and you don't make it, you don't just put it off or push it away and think, I'll do it tomorrow, or because once you fall into that trap, then you won't do it. So it's important to bring that intention and bit of discipline into your awareness, and you'll find that nature will support you. So you will find the time if you clearly set the intention that you wish to meditate.
Right. So that's very clear. Brilliant. And can you just describe what your personal practice is? Like, you don't have to go into details about your mantra, but like how many times a day, what time of day, like for you, what is your practice? Because there's so many different practices, but just what's your one?
Okay. So yes, I meditate twice a day. However, like we just discussed, if things become, it's life, unpredictable, something comes up and I miss a meditation, I don't beat myself about it. I just move on and carry on. So usually my morning meditation is before everyone wakes up, before my kids wake up.
Yeah.
And that's an important time to allow yourself that space. I think how you begin your day pretty much sort of determines the flavour of your day. And if we, again, set the intention to wake up a bit earlier and we allow ourselves that space and time to meditate, it just gives that level of more productivity towards the day and more clarity and focus. And the other one is usually before my evening meal, again, 15-20 minutes each time.
Right, so not long.
No, not long.
And yours is a still practice. You're sitting.
Yes. Yes.
Anything else you want to say about your practice?
Yes. So yes, of course. It's a mantra-based meditation, and you practice it quietly, sitting comfortably with your eyes closed. It's known as an effortless, innocent practice. So we don't attach any meaning to the mantra. Let's say it's all about the vibrational effect the mantra has on the mind, and that effect. What that means is that we have to think of the mind as being a vast ocean, so a deep, vast ocean, and the surface is always busy and active. We're thinking all the time, and there's lots of thinking going on. And then the other aspect is that as we go deeper under the ocean, it becomes more still until ultimately the bottom of the ocean is very quiet and silent. So the mantra-based technique or practice, let's say, is designed to take the mind to that more quieter and still levels.
Beautiful. I wish I had my book up here. I haven't got it, but there's it's downstairs. There's a line in the Radiant Sutras which says exactly that. It's very beautiful, but just it says exactly that. Like, imagine that everything you're feeling and experiencing is just a wave on the ocean. Mm-hmm. But you are the ocean, not the wave.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful image and metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
So then let's talk a little bit about your experience and the benefits, because you were bursting to kind of share so many benefits that you've experienced of like 10 years or more now practice, right?
Yeah, just a bit more. Yeah. Just, I've lost track of time, but yes, something like that. Yes. Okay. So I suppose what I can underline about the benefits, it creates, well, first of all, it creates that with regularity, of course, and with that just a bit of discipline, it creates that space and calmness that we all need and we all lack in some way, because life is just so busy and there's always things that are stimulating us. Also, because as we meditate regularly, we release the residual stress from the body. Over time, what happens is that we strengthen the nervous system. Right. And when we strengthen the nervous system, then we are able to deal with perceived threats in a much more efficient and much more effective way. Because ultimately, life is life. We're always going to be faced with challenges, and especially in this day and age where there's a constant bombardment of stimulants from technology, from traffic, from pollution, it's everything, family commitments, work commitments. It's just it's never-ending commitments and demands. And so one of the things that it's worth noting is that dealing with those things becomes much more easier. It's not to say that you don't ever feel stressed, you do, but you recover from it much more quickly, and your ability to deal with perceived threats changes in perception. So something that was once upon a time, and probably this is the most amazing side of it for me, is somebody that you you felt hurtful towards because you had an experience with that person, you perceived it as hurtful, or they hurt me and it's their fault, and you've got all this baggage that it shifts, and then you feel this lightness and you feel this change, and you look at that experience a lot more differently. Relationships, of course, improve because for me, I mean, one of my greatest challenges, back to challenges, was that I was an impatient person. So, you know, I want it now. It needs to happen now. And you know, that still comes up with me, you know, briefly. It's still there. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm the most patient person now, but I am a lot more patient than I used to be, and a lot more, I'm a lot more focused, and intuition is another one that I can talk about. I mean, I was someone that never paid attention to my intuition, and if something didn't feel right, I didn't pay attention that something didn't feel right, because I was just so caught up in other things. And so it's that sort of feeling that you get, you know, it teaches you to rest and stop when you need to stop, and rethink and reconsider. So yes, I can go on and on, but it's great. And the health and well-being side, of course, you know, your mental well-being, and the clarity and the creativity. So you become more creative with your time. That's another one. Sometimes you think, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and your mind is going la 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 la, all these things.
Yeah.
And then you sit down for 15-20 minutes, you close your eyes, and you come out, and things just fall into place. It's like once you get going, things just completes. Things just complete and fall into place, rather than getting all stressed and hooked up.
That's the one thing I think there's such a strong message that, you know, if I could put one message across, it would be that it's like, I know I have resisted, so I'm sure that's not atypical. I've resisted sitting down to be still for 15-20 minutes because of this belief that I have to do so much, and I'm so busy, and I've got this long list of things to do, and I must do it all, and there's all this, and I'm so stressed, you know. And then I will take the time out, and it's like suddenly the solution appears, that and everything's just easy again. And that's the kind of the misconception that I've had. I think it's common that it's kind of, oh, I haven't got the time. Mm-hmm. Is the thing. And actually it creates more time, and it creates solutions, and more flow, more ease, rather than the belief that it's taking time away from what's so important. It's kind of the opposite.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's very experiential. I mean, once you integrate it and you're regular with your practice, then you start to notice that.
Yeah. I'm also curious about, because I think it's really important, you know, you did talk about emotions and strong emotions, because, again, where I'm coming from, I feel it's really important not to deny, suppress, or reject any aspect of our beingness, and particularly our emotions as well, because it's so important to feel what's there, or to allow the energy of the emotion to complete its cycle. So, you know, for you, was the meditation something that supported the experiencing of the emotion without attachment to story, or did it in some way kind of release emotions you didn't know were there but needed to be felt for healing to complete, or a bit of both?
I think a bit of both, Shakti. I can, as you describe those two things, two different sort of aspects of emotions, I'd say a bit of both. So, I mean, I can honestly say and openly say that during my training, I don't think I've ever cried that much in my life. And this was one of the noticeable things of, and don't let this put you off, people. Crying is not a bad thing. Crying, especially when it happens in a state of, you've in a release, and you feel actually afterwards you feel a lot better, you feel lighter, and you feel like something's come out and left your system. I'm referring that type of crying, that flavor of crying. And yes, a lot of, I would be feeling certain emotion, like anger was, a great one. I had a lot of anger. I was angry, and I think that's, my constitution as well, my body type. It's I kind of have a tendency to, if I go out of balance, the anger is impatience and anger is what I fall into. And so lots of anger was something that was releasing a lot, and I released it in a form. It was releasing. I wasn't trying to. I wasn't, controlling it, but it was coming out as tears. And sometimes I had the need to actually punch pillows or do something to really let it out.
Right.
Because
meditation, not during the meditation.
Not during the meditation, no, not during the meditation. I mean, during meditation, I have had experiences where I've just started feeling a bit emotional or tearful, and, tears will just start flowing. It's not something that happens all the time, but it just happens. But no, the anger, emotional aspect of it was, yes, outside of the meditation. Something will start arising, and and then of course, the mind, then you can start thinking of, I'm angry because of this and because of that, or because of what happened and that happened and this happened. And yes, perhaps it is, but ultimately the important thing is to just embrace your anger, and that's it. Keep it at that.
Yes.
That's one of the things I had to learn, because once you relate your emotions, again, anger is a great one for me, to, he did this, she did that, and you get lost in this, the mind just goes, and you get lost in these scenarios of experiences that have happened. And even if those things do arise, I think it's important to be mindful of just what you're feeling, the emotion. And once you release it, then you just, you move on. That's the word.
Yeah, this is beautiful, because I think it's so important for us all to acknowledge our humanity, and emotions are a part of that. And there's nothing that needs to be denied or shamed in our beautiful humanness. And it doesn't mean that the anger needs to be directed in sort of aggression or violence to someone. In fact, it's more likely to come out in that way if it's not just felt and witnessed. If we sort of feel bad for feeling angry, or don't own that we feel angry, then it's going to come out in some sort of sideways, not healthy.
Yes, it is. It's going to come out. With me, it came out in my, gallbladder and liver. I've had experiences where I've hospitalized 3 times because of my gallbladder and gallstones and all sorts of things. And then over the years, I found out that those 2 organs are directly linked with anger.
Right. Okay.
So, yes, if we don't, but the thing is, Shakti, I think it's important to point out that we are not taught about emotions,
Yeah.
and how to feel them, and what to make of them, and how to deal with them, and how to manage them. And so this is something that I had to learn as an adult because I didn't have any awareness or mastery or understanding of it as a child or as a teenager. In fact all the way up until my 20s. So it's only when I became ill that I started looking into things because I decided I wasn't going to have a surgery, and decided to look into things in more depth, and looking into emotions and how it affects the body. And so, yes, what was your question at the beginning? We were talking about two aspects of the emotions, but yes, and I said a bit of both.
So this is all relevant and all interesting. I know people are going to find this interesting because already, again, as soon as, I know this from holding space and teaching and all that, as soon as I get a group of women together, and I say that simply because I mainly teach women, just in holding a space of presence, like I don't have to do anything, but just because there's presence, emotion arises, and people can start crying, and they don't even know why they're crying. Mm-hmm. But it's simply because there's presence in the room. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is. And that's what I guess the sort of the meditation practice supports. And then the capacity to be present to yourself and to your own emotions.
Yes. And to accept them, embrace them, but to also not become too attached to them. Right. So it gives you that, as you meditate regularly, it gives you that space and perception.
Yeah, totally get that. So that will lead me on to everything you've said will kind of fall into this, but just the specific question to you as a woman. Is there anything, and then I've got a few questions from people that they've asked me to ask you, but first of all, is there anything that you've noticed in terms of your practice that you would identify as distinct because you're a woman, or a need that is specifically different because you're a woman?
So in terms of the meditation practice,
your meditation practice, and either how it's helped you or specific challenges, either way.
Okay, so I can, as a woman, I can refer to my menstrual cycle and how, yes, so I have had phases in my life where I've gone really out of balance in terms of my cycle. So I'll miss periods for a certain amount of months, and then it will come back and it will disappear again. Or like a couple of years ago, I remember going through a bit of strong PMS, premenstrual symptoms. And I can say that what has happened over the years is that I've noticed how, and I'll have to refer to stress again, because of how stress has been stored in my body that has affected my menstrual cycle. And I've noticed a great change in that sense, and becoming more regular and having more awareness, because when we're menstruating, we need to be aware, and I was never aware as a teenager or in my 20s, and I became aware of this as an adult, that we need to slow down and that we need to take it easy as women, and we need to pay attention to what our bodies are signaling, because there's something going on, there's a signal there. And it's not surprising that you don't feel as productive and you don't feel as sociable. And so I was never aware of these things, and I would push myself regardless, or I wouldn't pay attention to it, or I didn't understand those elements and energies that happen in your cycle. And so meditation has given me a great awareness. It's helped me first of all manage my stress levels, which has an effect on the menstrual cycle big time.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
it affects the hormones, it affects it just affects the intelligence the body is designed to have. And so stress interferes with that. But also it has given me that sensitivity and awareness to honor what my body is telling me. So rest, do less, allow the body to experience what it needs to experience on a monthly basis. And as women, we have a cycle every month that we need to honor.
Yeah. You've kind of answered the primary question that people had, which was how if you've noticed a difference in sensitivity in your cycle in relation to your cycle and also in relation to the moon as a result of, does it affect your practice, or do you notice an enhanced sensitivity in your being or in your practice at different times of your cycle or at different times of the moon?
Yes, well, ultimately, when we're menstruating, when we're going through that phase, the body is feeling maybe a bit less energetic, or a bit more tired. And so because the body is feeling that way, it's going to have an effect on the mind, because the body and the mind work in correlation. So whatever happens to the body, the mind will become affected of that. And so, yes, I do notice that the flavor of the meditations change slightly, or, it's a bit like, oh, did I just meditate? Did that happen? Maybe it's some kind of, it's not as clear, or it's not as, the experience, it may not be as strong, or may not be as vivid, or may not be as obvious. But that's okay, because ultimately we can't judge what our meditation experiences, the flavor of our meditation experiences. What we need to be aware of is how it's helping us in activity, and how it's helping us in terms of our body and mind. But yes, there is a change in flavor during that time. I have noticed that.
That's interesting. And have you noticed, you have spoken anyway, which obviously makes sense, heightened sensitivity and a heightened level of self-awareness in general, which again is my own experience also. So that's kind of across the board. Have you noticed a greater sensitivity to the cycles of the moon?
Yes, well, I must admit, it's not been very long ever since I've become aware of the moon cycle, and it's been probably a couple of years now. But yes, I noticed, I heard about, and I noticed that how our cycle is direct connected to the lunar cycle, and how we menstruate. We need to menstruate naturally during the new moon. And so one of the things that happened is that my menstrual cycle started becoming in sync with the moon cycle. And that's not something that I did it with intention or trying. It's just that it started happening naturally. And when you think about it, when we're inward, and we're menstruating, and we're feeling more sluggish perhaps, and down, we're slowing down, the moon is dark. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. There's a link. And then you've got the full moon, which is really bright, and it kind of, your energy level is a lot different as the moon starts waxing, your energy levels change. And it's interesting how that corresponds with our menstrual cycle. So there's a natural rhythm there, natural intelligence.
Mine was often reversed, actually.
Really? Okay, interesting.
And it's interesting, but that's a separate topic. Somebody did also ask, I mean, about perimenopause and menopause, which I know isn't your experience. So I don't know if you can talk to how your practice helps you with that.
I'm not there yet.
I mean, I can say something because I'm in menopause. But it's hard to know because there's no, like, I don't know what my life would have been like without my practice, obviously.
Yes, yes.
But I would say, from what I can observe, but I mean, who knows what there are so many variants, who is to say? But I do know my practice has been even stronger as I went into the sort of the shift, which has happened in the last 2 years, is it? 2 or 3 years now? I kind of lose track. I think it's 2 or 3 years. So I'm fully in menopause, and I haven't really had any big difficulty. I'll say that, but I can't say if it's because of my practice or my lifestyle or my genes or what. I don't know. But I've definitely been very attuned to my body, which is at the peak of the transition was telling me to rest an awful lot because I was very fatigued. That was my primary symptom. But I allowed that. So I didn't deny that or try to override it by this kind of, the mentality of, well, you should be working. It was like, oh, I'm exhausted. I'm going to lie down.
Yeah.
So I allowed that. And so that supported me. And now I get little hot flushes, but it's not like, I just feel hot sometimes for a minute. It's not a difficulty or a challenge in any way. So it's quite good fun. I'm like, oh.
Here it comes again.
So that's my experience, but I can't say how much that's due to my practice or not personally. Yeah, let's see. I know, about my work and stuff. I wonder if there's anything that you would have to say about your relationship with your body and your sexuality and how your practice has informed or changed that without, doing anything you don't want to.
Okay, so yes, well, didn't expect this question was coming up with Shakti.
You don't have to answer it.
No, not at all. No, we can talk about it. And so, yes, well, I would say that over the years, as with the regular practice of meditation and taking care of myself in general, not just the meditation, but the food and sleep and regular fresh air and going outdoors and all those things. But yes, particularly meditation practice, I suppose it has made me, because it's made me more healthy and more sensitive, my ability to experience pleasure has grown quite a lot since not since I've directly integrated it, but since the last couple of years. And also I would say just feeling more comfortable about your body, because that's something that I really struggled with as a teenager, and in fact all the way to my late 20s. No matter how much I dressed and how my weight was the ideal weight and this and that, I was always in that frame of mind where I was never good enough and not beautiful enough and not just not enough. That was deeply ingrained in me, and I noticed how that feeling, that state gradually started to shift. It didn't shift just like that, no, I'll be lying. it does take time, and it does take practice and patience. And so just becoming more comfortable and confident, and just appreciating and being more self-loving towards my body, then obviously what that led me towards was to just experience greater pleasure and greater orgasms. And so yes, I can totally relate to that, and I'm grateful for that. So and just becoming more comfortable with your sexuality in general, because I think from my experience, from where I'm coming from, I was someone that experienced a lot of discomfort about that. That's just my upbringing, my background, and my experiences as a teenager, and all sorts of things. So it's taken quite a bit of time, but I must say, that I'm really happy with where I am today in that sense. So yes, definitely greater pleasure and greater comfort in your sexuality is got to be noted. Can't deny that. And it'd be a shame not to talk about it, because it will help. It will help. I mean, when you think about when you meditate, what it does to the nervous system, it relaxes your nervous system. And so that's what's essential in lovemaking. You need to be totally relaxed about it.
Yeah.
And if you're stressed and tense and you've got all this chemical pumping in your body, well, of course, that's going to affect your ability to experience the pleasure that you can ultimately experience. And then, of course, it's going to affect your ability to have orgasm, perhaps. I mean, I struggled with that as a teenager at some stage.
No, definitely. Reading Come As You Are right now, amazing book by Emily Nagoski. And I knew this already, but it's like sometimes people out there need to hear me repeat the words of someone who's written a book,
right? Okay.
to kind of believe it. But it's proven, for a woman, stress, anxiety, body image, lack of compassion for the self are what dampens pleasure and orgasm. It's just so obvious and simple, but also not. So yeah. I've got, I don't know if you want to answer this, or let's see what happens. That was another question from someone.
Dun, dun, dun.
Completely changing tack, but I'm going to ask it because somebody asked it. Can meditation, I mean, I'm slightly rephrasing what they said, but how would you protect yourself from 5G? Or as a meditation teacher, what would you say to your not your students, what would you say to your students, the people who learn from you, the people you practice with, the teach? What would you say about how to protect yourself from 5G? If that was one of your people that you taught, what would you say?
Okay, so I mean, well, I mean, I can understand there's a lot of controversial stuff going on around 5G, and there's also a lot of fear going on around and concern going on around, because my understanding is that, can our bodies handle that degree of radiation? So it is concerning, but I'm no expert in this, so I can't, possibly discuss the depths of it. However, what I would say is that, if despite if we go, we're all against it, and we do our best to fight it so it doesn't happen, but it still happens, then that would be something that's out of our control. And something that's out of our control, we need to find ways to control our ability to respond to that event or situation. And so, I mean, I can understand there's countries that have gone against it and they've banned it, but if it's going to happen, despite our resistance towards it, then I suppose we need to find some ways to accept that it's going to happen and control our ability to respond to it. I mean, I don't know if grounding mats might help. I mean, I use a grounding mat at home when I'm on my PC. It's connected to there's a socket that connects to the earth connection on the wall, and my feet are on the grounding mat, so all the I think it's positive ions that come out of the computer is all absorbed in there. I mean, that's something that perhaps can be looked into, grounding technology it's called, or something like that. I mean, we can ground if we go outside and we step on the earth with bare feet. I don't know, again, I'm no expert, so I don't know how much of this would help, but those are the things that I find help me in my personal experience. When I'm around a computer or laptop or phone for too long, I notice how, you know, I get all spaced out and I'm really not myself. So if it's not too cold and I take off my shoes and socks and step on the earth or lie down on the ground for 10 minutes, it's almost as if it's charging yourself. Just like you charge your phone, you charge yourself with the earth. Yeah, those are the things that I can share from my experience.
But that's beautiful, because that's really practical.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, of course, then you have your practice, which is going to be a really important element of supporting you in integrating any fear or anxiety as a reaction that's arising, rather than to let that kind of take over.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me see. So if a woman is watching this, or anyone's watching this, what advice would you give, like a final parting thing for somebody who wants to, who hasn't been meditating, but would like to start a practice? Now's a great time. What would be your first piece of advice you would give?
Okay. I'd say get going. It's the greatest thing that you can do. I think we all need to somehow develop and find a practice to find balance and to find more meaning. And obviously, if you've had that calling that, you know, oh, maybe I should meditate, or maybe I need to learn to meditate for whatever reason, even if it's just for practical reasons, for emotional reasons, it could be for spiritual reasons, it could be, depends on, everyone's different, everyone's got their own individual journey. I'd say that if that calling happens, even if it's a very quiet, silent impulse, you know, calling, pay attention and go for it.
And Azra, how can people get in touch with you if they want to know about what you teach, Vedic meditation or TM, and also about your coaching, your life coaching, your mindfulness, and your, you know, the whole spectrum of your beautiful offerings? How can people reach you?
Well, you can reach me on Facebook, and we have a website with 2 other teachers, which is called the meditationhub.co.uk. So you can email me from there, or you can email me on azra@meditationhub.co.uk, or get in touch with Shakti.
No, don't come to me. I get sick. I swear, I've had so many bloody messages about COVID.
Oh yes, Messenger, WhatsApp, yes, or yes, just email is a great way. Azra@meditationhub.co.uk. I'll get back to you. Don't get in touch with Shakti.
If anyone does accidentally work to me, I would not. I would send them over to you. Don't worry. Oh, well, we've spoken a little bit longer than I said. Sorry, just
all right.
But it's been really amazing. So thank you, Azra, and thank you everyone for watching. If you have enjoyed this, please like it, please share it. Your comments, support, donations even are super welcome. And with that, much love. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to just end the video now. Lots of love.